Thank you, Pastor, and the members of your church for offering us a chance to go through our Four Chaplains program. We are members of Post 737, Lake Milton, Ohio, Legion members, Ladies Auxiliary, number 737, and Sons of the American Legion, Squadron 737. Pictures of Four Chaplains are back in front of where Kevin sits. And on your way out to fellowship, you can look at the pictures. There's a picture of the ship. There's also some more information. And a few years back, we had one of the survivors actually come to our post and did a service with us. Our post has been doing this since 1948. And with exceptions for a couple of years that circumstances haven't permitted the program to be performed, we have been doing it every year since. We will start our program first with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to stand with us and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. We have gathered here today to honor the four great chaplains. It is a story that should touch your heart. It is hoped after this program that you will have a better understanding of the great importance of why we honor these four special men of God and why we keep what they did alive after all these years. February 2nd of this year was set aside as the anniversary of their loss. February 3rd, 1943, 71 years ago. The first week in February is Religious Emphasis Week in their behalf. Said John Ladd, one of the survivors, "It was the finest thing I have ever seen or hope to see this side of heaven." We will now have the reading of the troop ship Dorchester and one of each of the four chaplains. The man who will give our reading of the troop ship is Merle McLaughlin. He is one of our founding fathers of our post. He is also a Navy veteran of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Merle.
Good morning. Good morning. It is a good morning for a change. This is a very moving ceremony. I've been doing this, like I said, since 1948. And every time I do this, of course, being an Iwo Jima veteran and seeing so much horrible things go on there, all of the Navy men that were bringing the Marines in and all of their gear and the battle and everything. You just, if you're doing something like this and you get a flash of that, it hits you right here. And we've had many members of our post down through the years reading one of these things, and they got some tears, and a few of them even broke down. Even my wife, when she was doing it one day. It's a tough thing, and some people don't understand the feelings we get. But if you've been in battle and seen ships sink like I have, mine was one of them, and it's just a thing that hits you real hard. I would like to have you look on the way out on that table. You'll see the Four Chaplains pictures and a picture of the Dorchester, and my wife and I were on a bus tour to York, Pennsylvania. Well, we were on a bigger tour, but York was one of our stopping points. And the lady that was the tour guide for us said, why don't you walk down the street a couple blocks and take a look at that big building on the corner. We walked down there and turned and looked up at this building, probably 30-some feet tall, the mural we saw there, and maybe 40-some feet long. And I went across the street and took a picture of it. I had my back to another building. There wasn't room enough to back up anymore. But it's a picture of the Four Chaplains. One was from York, and you'll see the picture on the table back there. It's not a great picture, but it's the best I could do. But this mural was done by an artist association there, and how many volunteers it took to paint that big mural, I never know. But it's a moving thing to see, I'll tell you. We had a lot of experience with chaplains in the service. I was a Navy man at Iwo Jima, and I was a radio man. And the captain and I had to stay aboard when my ship sunk. Luckily, it was backing off the beach, and there was only 18 feet of water we sunk in. So I was on the radio man, and the conning tower stuck up in the air another 30 feet. So my captain and I stayed there on the ship, everybody else evacuated. And we had divers repair the hole in the side. A jet kamikaze plane hit us. He was out of fuel and out of bombs, so he sank us. We got the hole plugged, they pumped the water out, took the ship out to a repair ship. In 10 days, we were back on the beach hauling in more Marines and gears. We've had some experiences. This story is very earth-moving. If you accept it the way it's written here, it's very moving. This is the story of the Four Chaplains. A rendezvous with destiny, February 3rd, 1943. The freighter rose and fell sluggishly at her pier, with the dark waves slapping at her sides. The garish New England night was full of shadows, and the sound of winches, screeching cranes, and the shuffling cadence of weary troops. One of the black shadows hung over the stern of the freighter, almost obliterating her name, the Dorchester. The vessel was old and small, and only the exigencies of total war had forced her transformation into a troop ship. On this night in mid-January '43, she was being loaded with troops at the Massachusetts port, her destination hidden in an envelope of secret orders. Soldiers, 904 men in all, tramped through the companionway down into the bowels of the ship. Naked light bulbs showed them their quarters, bunks hastily built into the hold, 4 tiers high, 6 meager feet of space per man. Among their number walked 4 chaplains. Their names were Fox, Good, Poling, and Washington. That told nothing. At 0600 the next morning, the Dorchester cast off her lines and headed out to sea. The men grew tense with fear of the unknown. The moments ahead and rumors as to their destination flew across the ship. Only the sky pilot knew they were headed for Greenland. At this period of World War II, Allied shipping, under constant attack by wolf packs of Nazi U-boats, was being sunk almost as fast as they could be built. All available destroyers were sent to guard the carriers and battle wagons pounding the Japanese islands in the far Pacific. That's where I was. And the vital convoys to the United Kingdom. For such as the lumbering old Dorchester, there was only a few Coast Guard cutters and make-do craft to be escorted. Day became night and night became day as the little convoy followed the course to Greenland. As the month of January ran out, the 4 chaplains bunked, talked, and worked together, comforting the sick, reassuring the troubled ones, and joined, excuse me. Yeah, I lost my place. They joined in singing in daily banner. They were admired by all because while they were men of God, they were first of all real men. A mysterious sense of danger was prevalent through the ship. On the evening of the second day of the new month, one of the three escort on the Coast Guard cutter blinked a message across the water. "We are being followed by a submarine." The PA system crackled with orders and the crew jumped to their guns. The Dorchester's engine whined and labored to gain speed, but could push the ungainly freighter along at only 10 knots, which isn't very fast. The convoy stopped briefly at St. John's, Newfoundland, and then moved on northeastward through the strange whiteness of the night. On the next morning, February the 3rd, the ship's bells sounded 1 o'clock. They never sounded again. A minute later, a torpedo smashed into the Dorchester, well below the waterline, amidship. The torpedo exploded with all its terrific fury in the engine room. Bursting steam lines fatally scalded the engineers and oilers with cruel abandon. The sea rushed into the hole like a tidal wave, drowning 100 men like rats in a trap. Stark panic whipped across the ship, blotting out in an instant the so newly acquired training in discipline and survival. Men cursed bitterly and others wept as they struggled feverishly with boats and lines. Others rushed below deck in search of forgotten life belts, never to return. Through this scene of terror moved a few strong men, purposeful, calm, and seemingly unafraid. Among these were the Four Chaplains, rushing everywhere about the ship, in the terror-ridden interior and on the crazily tilted deck, giving some men the strength to live and others the courage to die. Suddenly the ship shivered and men everywhere cried out, "She's going down, we'll be sucked under." The chaplains sensed the threat. Over the side, men, make it fast. The wind tore the words from their lips. Get away from the ship before it pulls you down. Men looked at the Four Chaplains with new wonder, seeking a sign, some symbol, to carry with them into the valley of death. One man, more boy than man, made his way to the group at the rail. "Padre, I've lost my life jacket. I can't swim. I'll die." One of the chaplains tore off his own life preserver, put it about the boy's shoulders. "Take this, son. I'm staying. I won't need it." The soldier tied the jacket strings around the rail and dipped into the sea, now almost level with the deck. The other chaplains followed without hesitation, with a full realization that there could be no survival in the icy sea without life jackets. During the last dying moments of the freighter, the Four Chaplains, there with the crosses on their collars and one with the tablet of the laws on his, stood with their arms linked in devoted prayer as the vessel's bow came up and then slid under the raging surface. Somewhere off in the seething seas, 4 other men escaped the jaws of death, supported by the chaplain's life jackets. Of the 904 men aboard the Dorchester, only 209 survived. Many of these survivors owe their lives to the spiritual courage and supreme sacrifice of the Four Chaplains, who have passed on a legacy of brotherhood to all men. Aboard the Dorchester were 4 U.S. chaplains, Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, one each in his own way were answering the call to serve God and man. With arms linked, symbolic of their common bond, the 4 chaplains remained praying on the deck until it sank into the black waters of everlasting glory. The 4 chaplains were Reverend George L. Fox, a Methodist, Dr. Alexander Good, Rabbi. Father Reverend Clark V. Poling, Reformed Dutch. Father John P. Washington, Catholic.
Jewish, Alexander D. Good. Alexander Good was too young for World War I, while George Fox was winning medals on the battlefield. Alexander was leading his class in scholarships. He planned to follow his father's footsteps and become a rabbi. But that did not stop him from having fun with kids his own age of all faiths. When the body of the unknown soldier was brought to Arlington, he walked the 30 miles round trip, wanting to show respect to those returning that offered him rides. Even while training for his calling, he joined and served active duty in the National Guard. He was married to his childhood sweetheart. They had a daughter. After his call to a synagogue in York, Pennsylvania, he completed his education with a PhD. One day in 1943, Mrs. Good received a telegram from her husband. From it, she knew that her husband had found those to share his faith and laughter with. Alexander D. Good was the youngest at age 31.
Dutch Reformed, Clark V. Poling. Clark Poling was the seventh generation in an unbroken line of ministers of the gospel. He was ordained in a Dutch Reformed church. Married, he was the father of a son. His daughter was born at Easter time after the Dorchester went down. When war came, he did not want to go as a chaplain, did not want to hide behind the church. His father explained his chances of being killed as a chaplain were just as high. On his father's words, he became a chaplain. Before sailing, Clark asked his father not to pray for his safe return. It seemed like he would be asking God for a special family favor. Instead, he asked for prayers of strength, a prayer that he would at least be adequate. He taught his men not to bear personal hatred for German and Japanese soldiers or civilians. His text was simple. Hate the system that made your brother evil. It is the system that we must destroy. Clark V. Poling was only 32 years old.
Roman Catholic, John P. Washington. Johnny Washington was an Irish boy from Newark, New Jersey. Things weren't easy being a poor Irish immigrant family, but he earned his father's Irish grin and his mother's Irish spunk. He sold newspapers to help feed the 9 mouths of their family. Loving music, he sang in the church choir. Johnny loved to fight. On occasion, he would get a black eye or a bloody nose. Johnny was always laughing right through his training as a priest and after he was ordained. He played ball in the streets with his boys from his parish. He organized baseball teams. And when the war came along and his boys went to the army, Father Johnny went right along with them as a matter of course. They say that when the Dorchester went down, he was still laughing and singing and praying to comfort those who could not reach the lifeboats. Johnny B. Pulling was 34 years old.
George L. Fox, the Methodist. George Fox was called the Little Minister, being only 5'7" tall. In 1917, at age 16, he lied about his age and enlisted in the Army as a medical corps assistant. He went into a poison gas battlefield and rescued a wounded soldier, and he won the Silver Star. Later, for outstanding bravery in an artillery barrage, he was awarded the Croix de Guerre. After World War I, he became happily married and they had 2 children. One evening he came home from work as a public accountant and told his wife he wanted to study for the ministry. She approved, so George became a minister. Then war came again. "I've got to go," he told his wife. "I know from experience what our boys are about to face. They need me." Before he boarded to Dorchester, he wrote a letter to his little daughter. She received it after the news that the ship was torpedoed. "I want you to know," he wrote, "how proud I am that your marks in school are so high, but always remember that kindness, charity, and courtesy are much more important." At 42 years of age, George L. Fox was the oldest of the Four Chaplains.
This song in thanking the Four Chaplains, you may have heard it before, a song of a man entering heaven and being told that he had done things that maybe he didn't even realize to touch other people's lives. What might happen to you when you walk into heaven? Let's make a difference now like the Four Chaplains did. I dreamed I went to heaven and you were there with me. We walked along the streets of gold beside the crystal sea. We heard the angels singing and someone called your name. We turned and saw this young man and he was smiling as he came. He said, "Friend, you may not know me now." And then he said, "But wait, you used to teach my Sunday school when I was only 8. And every week you would say a prayer before the class would start. And one day when you said that prayer, I asked Jesus in my heart. Thank you giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. Then another man stood before you and said, remember the time a missionary came to your church. His pictures made you cry. You didn't have much money, but you gave it anyway. Jesus took the gift you gave, and that's why I'm here today. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. I sing to you men today and everyone that has served in the service. One by one they came, as far as the eye could see. Each one somehow touched by your generosity. Little things that you had done, sacrifices made, unnoticed on the earth, in heaven now proclaimed. Now I know up in heaven, you're not supposed to cry, but I could almost swear there were tears in your eyes as Jesus took your hand and you stood before the Lord. He said, my child, look around you. Great is your reward. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I am so glad you gave. I am so glad you gave.
Closing thoughts. We leave you with these thoughts. Like Merle said of the 904 men on board the Dorchester, only 209 survived. 4 of these men who survived owe their lives to the 4 men of God who gave them their life jackets, knowing their fate. Remember this, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. John 15, verse 13. Thank you for letting us share this program with you. We will now give the worship service back to Pastor Bill.
Please note that the closing hymn that we are going to sing is our national hymn. It is the hymn of prayer to God of our fathers, seeking God's help for us as the people of this country. And let us remember as we sing it, we are called to follow